Hey guys, it's your course director Emily here. Just wanted to give you some positive, productive feedback on the portfolio sites that you guys have been working on. So this is probably the second revision that you've done, and I just want to give you some insight, a few things to consider as you continue to mold this as part of the MCBS program. So I'm going to go through these sites one by one and share a few thoughts. So first up, we have Daniel. We've got kind of this fun character here of you, and then the tagline or the title here that you're a creative director. We've got some interesting video that's looping in the background. My question to you would be like, is this your video? And if it's not, what is your intention of showing sort of these different travel scenes, and how does that sort of reflect in your mind or align in your mind with this idea of being a creative director, right? So initially I would think that that had to do a little bit more with videography, and if that videography work was yours, then it might make more sense if you talked about your production work. So there's a little bit of a question in my mind, and curious as to your thoughts on the strategy behind that. I'm going to go ahead and I thought I was going to be able to click down, but it looks like I'm just going to scroll. So here we see sort of a cutoff of what looks like it's some sort of art, but so like style-wise, we're kind of going through a few different things here. So a little bit inconsistent in that regard. So we've got your mission here, and then some placeholder text, right? So nothing in here really yet that's kind of articulating more about your work and the aim of it. So your selected work, looks like we've got a combination of photo and video. It's in this slider, and I'm trying to click on the ones that aren't videos themselves, because what's really needed is, one, to open this up in a light box so that I can see it a little bit better, but then two, a title and a description of the work, and then ultimately, what is it that you're trying to show me with this piece? What were the skills that you are highlighting? What was the software you used? And then when we're looking at some of your video work here, I could press play on this, and it's going to show me this somewhat of a smaller version here. I just don't think that this is the best display of these projects, in as much as I'd like to see them all a little bit bigger and certainly more information. With these videos, what was your role in them? Were you the camera guy? Did you storyboard it? Did you edit everything? Did you do everything? So like, those are added details that can help us more fully understand the value and the service that you bring in your work. So here we've got reach out to me, but about what? Are you for hire? Are you for collaboration? Do you just want to hang out? These are all things that you can kind of help structure the call to action here. So you're making a concerted effort to get the touch points that you want, right? So to, if you can, funnel the traffic that you're looking for on this site. So those are a few things to think about. I know that you are, tweaking this a lot. I've seen different versions of this, and there's certainly a bit more that needs to happen here to give it, more cohesiveness. I certainly, enjoy the quality of the work product that you have selected here to show, but need more information about them, and would like for you to think about moving forward. How can you kind of curate a body of work that is a bit deeper, so we have a few different types of things here, some graphics, some video, some animation, but how does this all relate to you being a creative director? If this is what you want to be, what do you need to showcase here in your portfolio that is indicative of your skill set in that area? Next up, we've got Reagan's site. So I'm looking at this, and the graphic itself seems a bit like blurry or a little pixelized. I might recommend checking the resolution of what you've got there, maybe a higher resolution graphic for this. You talk about being a multimedia journalist, and then you share a number of things here. So we've got your blog, which is great, and just all of the different articles. So that's cool. I'm going to go ahead and select one and kind of scroll down. We've got some of the fashion stuff, and then the article itself, which is cool. I'm really enjoying seeing the development of this. It's definitely taking on kind of a solid look and feel. when you talk about being a multimedia journalist, my question then would be, how does the fictitious website for Real Deal Tacos fit in here? Your website shouldn't be a catch-all, meaning that just because you did these projects doesn't necessarily mean that they automatically should go into your portfolio if that's not the type of work that you want to get, or ultimately, what's in alignment with your brand. So really, what I want you to encourage you to think about is, as you continue through the program, being very selective about this, and only really adding examples of your work that are reflective of the types of work that you want to continue to do. So when you call yourself a multimedia journalist, for me, there's a disconnect between sharing your fictitious website, but then also even like this sort of stuff, right? This is schoolwork, and I have the context as your instructor to understand this, but somebody who just happened upon your site would not at all, would not have any real way to understand that. With your blog, so here we've got sort of the posts kind of coming back in. I thought that that's what was under broadcast, but it wasn't. It looks like, hold on. Okay, so when we open up, your home page is actually this blog. So that's a little bit of not as intuitive as I thought it would be, and especially with the way that these are ordered. So generally, your bookend pages here would be the home page on this side of the navigation and your contact page here. So a little counterintuitive. I'm going to go to broadcast, and so here we see some of the videos that you've done. So that's cool. I'm going to select one, kind of scroll down. I'm not going to play it at the moment. But I'm curious as to how this fits into broadcast. Something for you to think about. Just because it's a video or just because you're talking in it, it's a school project at this point. I don't know that it would totally count. I mean, it counts as if, whatever you choose to include counts. But I want you to, again, be very thoughtful about this. Like, is your RISE self-evaluation an example of broadcasting? Is that how you want to present yourself and your knowledge of broadcasting? Just something for you to think about. And then last but not least, here on this About page, we have a little bit about you. It looks like we've got an image coming in, so that looks great. Your resume here, I can download the PDF, which is awesome, and then places that I can connect with you online. I'm really proud of where this site is overall. It's got a strong aesthetic, and I think that you're highly receptive to feedback on this, and just keep tweaking those dials, and I think it's going to get to a truer and truer version of what is uniquely yours. So here we've got Chauncey's site, so Games Before Bros. We've got a trailer here that we can watch. But so there's really not much that I can see here on this page. The name itself kind of gives me, the name that I can see here under this text gives me an idea that it has to do a little bit about gaming. The logo as it's shown up here absolutely is unusable in the sense that it's so small that I can't really see it, right? If I can't see it and read it, then I can't really make sense of it. The graphic itself looks somewhat like a hurricane, which I don't necessarily immediately associate with games. And so there's not even anything visually that kind of tips me off there. So definitely the name Game Before Bros, the identity of the site, needs to be up here in the header, as should some form of navigation. Otherwise, I'm sort of left with very few options on what to do. We've got your social media icons here, which is great. I can connect with you in other places online. Because I have no navigation, my only real option then is to scroll. I'm scrolling down and I still don't even see anything that kind of lets me know what's going on. I could press play here to see the trailer, right? But then you're counting on somebody to take an additional action. And I think that it would be sort of a better strategy to provide a little bit more context about what this site is about, what this Games Before Bros is about, rather than just relying on someone to watch a video on it. Kind of scrolling down here, we do get a little bit of what I'm talking about, that synopsis, that summary about hey, what's this all about right here. This text needs to be left aligned. As we talked about in class, when you're center aligning text, it makes it more difficult to read. So you do a podcast as well, right? There's nothing here up until this point that kind of illuminated that for me. I'm just going to kind of click on some of these. And it looks like what's happening is it's loading video content in this, but there's nothing even really in here that talks about like we're a video content provider, right? You have a great body of work, so a lot of stuff to kind of fill that in, but there needs to be contextualization of this content. Just don't rely on people to, pick a video and watch it without kind of getting more of that contextual information. This stuff is great. Talking about it as a podcast is great. Talking about like the videos and stuff that you're creating, all needs to happen higher up in this area up here. As I scroll down, I see just a place to kind of get in touch collaborating on projects, right? So if you're interested in learning more about my work, that's singular, or how we can collaborate. In this, you are showing two people, and you say, we are Games Before Bros. So here you're talking in the plural, and you're showing two people. But here you're talking about yourself as an individual. So, that's just something you want to choose the direction of and be consistent there. Certainly there are opportunities to improve the clarity of the branding and the message on this, and also that contextual information to really help build more language around what you do without just relying on the videos to show it. Last but not least, we have Aries site here. So we've got your name and you're a world builder. Kind of a fun image here. That's from that photo workshop. We have a number of different tabs that we're going to check out, but I'm going to scroll first. We have a short little paragraph about you being a world builder and a writer, kind of giving us a little bit of your background with writing and some of the projects that you like to work on. This text is pretty dense in terms of the amount of text and language that someone will kind of commit to reading on a web page. Remember that people tend to scan information, so the extent that you can break this up and make it less dense, the more apt people are going to scan it and absorb that info. What I'd like to see is your name, this identity, added up here in this area, so that when I click off of this page, I still know that this is Aries site, right? Like you have your initials here, but I'd also like to see that identity of the individual in this space. So here you're talking about, showing some of the cool artwork that you've got going for some of your stories and some of the concepts. So it's cool to kind of see this coming to life. You've got your creatures, so focusing a little bit on the stories that you are conceptualizing and creating, and the animals that go along with that. I'm encouraged to see how much you are able to show for the attention that you've put there. Map design. So yeah, I'm enjoying seeing your process here and kind of checking out these different assets that you are collecting to build these worlds for sure. My question to you would be, if all of this is about one world, if all of this stuff is about a single project, does it make sense to put this on Aries site, or does it make sense just to create a website for this particular world or for this particular project? Something for you to think about there, especially if you start to build more worlds. You kind of talk about these different components or nuances of, what it is that you're creating here. And altogether, they're telling an interesting story. If you start to tell more stories, I'm curious about how that will fit in a logical way to Aries site, right? Like if you're creating one world in another world, maybe it makes more sense to kind of package and promote that on its own site. And then just instead of sharing the assets themselves for these worlds or the descriptions for these worlds, you can just more so talk about yourself and the skills and the talents and the aptitudes and the drive to create these worlds on your own site. On the contact page, we just have a place that we can send an email or connect via Discord. This is a great start, Aries. I think that it could use a bit more in terms of that strategy, right? Like, so is this about Aries, or is this about the world that you're creating? And if it's just about the world, maybe it needs to have its own website to be about the world. Definitely, you guys give me any questions that you have about this feedback. Happy to continue to be a support to you on this. This is not the last time that we'll talk about your websites, so please don't let too much time go before you are putting your hands back on this, incorporating some of this feedback and moving it to its next best place, because before you know it, you're going to be in portfolio again, and we're going to be talking about this site one more time. So let me know if you have any questions.